Deck
Hey, welcome
profile
back
time,
everyone to the
everyone.
channel. Now, I am doing a deck profile on
No
one of the
shit.
most requested decks I have ever seen.
What a surprise.
It's
People
taking me a
like
bit,
the
but
deck.
I'm going to go through the list of the Nordic decks
The OG.
that I've run throughout the series in order of appearance. Now, this is going to be the original one right here, which is the original version, the clean Nordic deck that has little to nothing else besides Nordics.
Yeah.
Excluding the extra deck, of course.
Yeah.
But here we have Fenrir. Fenrir is a level 10 monster that's supposed to be comboed with this one, Jormungandr.
The Nordic Serpent.
This guy, can only be special summoned during the main phase 2 if there is an Asia monster on my side of the field. Now you might be thinking,
in general.
why would you want this guy on your opponent's side of the field, especially since he's stronger than Thor? Well, the reason is, when he's on your opponent's side of the field, he he changes all the defense position monsters to attack mode, and while he's face up, any battle damage he inflicts to me while he controls this card, he takes as well. So this could be a self-forced self-KO. So
Interesting.
it's a very good combo, and the reason he's supposed to be paired up with this one is, if this card is on your opponent's side of the field in defense position, if an Asian monster is not on the field, destroy it. Meaning if Fenrir destroys Thor, then
Both go pop.
he will self-detonate, and he will go to the grave, causing the owner, which is my opponent, to take 3,000 points of damage.
No.
These two coupled together
Has to be forced into attack
can
position.
potentially end the opponent very quickly. It's hard to pull off the combo, but when it does, it works.
It is hard.
Next we have Sarftov of the Nordic Alfair. He's pretty simple. He's a level 5 tuner, which is a little weird, but he works when he works. When he's normal summoned, I can target a Nordic monster in my graveyard, add it back to my hand. You've seen him. I normally like to pair him with the Verge, but we'll go over him when we get to him. Tyr of the Nordic Champions. You already know him. He's one of my highest level 4 monsters. He is very strong, but he does have a self-destructive effect that if I control no other Nordic monsters, he self-destroys himself. So I need to make sure that I bring him out at the right times, or else I am just gonna be wasting a normal summon just for him. Next, you have the heart of the deck, Goldfax, the card that is necessary to bring out Thor.
Why couldn't it be a Cyber Dragon?
Is a level 4 tuner that normally couples with the goats, but the thing about him is, if my opponent controls a synchro monster, I can special summon him. So it's very good to have this
mechanics
out.
go out, Goldbox
Especially if my
becomes
opponent's
less
behind,
and less
I can use
useful.
him coupled with another monster I can normal summon
Especially
still,
towards the effect.
just to make sure I get out either Thor or another monster. Next we have Lysov of the Nordic Alfair. Now, Lysov is a unique card in the fact that when he's summoned, or normal summoned I should say, I can target one other monster I control, whether it's high or low, as long as I have another monster that matches or is lower than the monster that was targeted. Normally I do this with Thor or something. I can special summon that monster. Normally when that happens, I can either do another Goldfax, maybe a Vanitas or something, just to pull off a combo that will allow me to synchro summon during that turn, or even overlay, depending on the situation. Next we have Vanitas of the Nordic Ascent. This one's unique because this one can count towards any Nordic tuner specifically. Now you might notice it says Nordic Ascent, meaning she's supposed to be only for Odin, but
she's a Prisma.
she can also work for Thor because she can change herself to any of the 3 for the synchro. Normally I want to use Goldfax because he normally goes with Thor's secondary effect, which is the self-revival, but we'll go over that later. But the other thing about her is I can change her level depending on the monster I choose to send from my deck to the graveyard to activate it. So potentially I can set up different plays by changing her level. Unfortunately, she does have one drawback, that when she uses this effect, she can only synchro with other Nordic monsters. Luckily in this deck, there's only Nordic monsters, so that doesn't come to bite me in any way, at least for now. Now, Garm of the Nordic Beasts.
Is useless.
Garm is, he's a very defensive monster in the fact that if I set him turn 1, I can make sure that if my opponent runs into him with a 400, with a level 4 below monster, and it doesn't kill Garm, it'll send that card right back to the hand, making him waste a normal summon for the turn, potentially leading me to either synchro or just attack directly with another monster.
But he still gets
different
over
kind
it,
of
you know?
plays. It's a very good card for defensive plays.
Useless.
Next we have Trashganir
Cloudians
of the
be
Nordic
fucked.
Beasts. Now, Trashganir is a unique one in the fact that if he's destroyed, I can special summon 2 level 3 tokens from to the field. Normally when that happens, I'll have some kind of Goldfax, Vanitas, or hopefully something that will allow me to go straight into the main monster, Thor.
Oh.
Next, I have Trashgnater of the Nordic Beasts. This one's one of the key cards for the deck, as when he's set, or in different defense position, when he switched from that to attack mode, I can special summon 1 Nordic Beast from my deck onto the field. Now that could be Garm, Trashganir, or Goldfax. Normally I go for a Goldfax, but if I already have a Goldfax, then I'll go for a Trashganir. This normally lets me set up for a God Summon, which is this is one of the strongest cards in the deck to get these cards out. And I'm very grateful that the deck has this kind of support for it. Next we have Mimir of the Nordic Ascent. Normally this guy is not seen that much, but that's because in order to use him, he has to be in the grave. I have to control a Nordic monster,
and you have to discard
but
a spell.
I can send 1 spell card from my hand to grave to special summon him. This can be very good for certain reasons, such as maybe I need the level 2 in order to bring out Thor.
Not likely.
Or Odin, or any of them later on.
And Gold Box on the field, but
right now he is mainly a stall card for when I need him.
Mimir would have been much
Next,
better
we
as
have
a
the
tuner
Verge
monster.
of the Nordic Alfair. Very good card in the sense that when he is normal summoned, I can normal summon an additional time during the turn, as long as it's a Nordic monster. And normally I couple this with Sarvatarf, because when I tribute him for Sarvatarf, whenever he's sent to the grave, I can bring back 1 Nordic relic, which is the trap cards down here, from my graveyard back to my hand. And coupled with Sarvatarf, I can bring back a Nordic monster that's in the grave as well. So potentially, I have a +2 with a, well, it's kind of like an even play. Plus, I use 2 cards to get a +2 card, but potentially those cards can either turn around the duel or put me in a very strong position. Now we got some generic cards, Raigeki, Soul Charge. You guys already know what these 2 cards do. Don't really need to go over them. Goddard Dummerung. I can never pronounce these. I'm going to try to learn how to pronounce these. Don't worry, guys, for those who are a little triggered off the fact that I cannot pronounce these words that well. But this card is good in the sense that when you target this card, give control of that monster to your opponent. It's a Aegir monster, but and you might say, why are you giving them Thor or any of the other gods? Well, because during your opponent's next end phase, destroy it, and if it does, banish all the cards they control, basically nuking the field.
Or you give them Odin and make him immune to everything.
Thanks to that revival effect, when they revive because they're in my graveyard, they will return back to my field, giving me the potential to basically hit them directly and finish them off, or set up to a position where I am in very much the lead. Next we have March Towards Ragnarok. It's a quick play. If I'm targeting, I can target 1 Asia monster until the end turn. Its effects are negated, but it is unaffected by spells and trap cards. So meaning I can use this to make sure I'm unaffected by a Scrap Iron Scarecrow, a Mirror Force, Dimensional Prison, all that, just to ensure a win or make sure a monster is destroyed. Next we have some basic Twin Twisters. You already know what these do. Discard a card, destroy 2 cards in the field. Next, we have Nordic Relic Dunfnir. Now, what this card is, it basically powers up my Nordics or my Asia monsters by 800 attack, which is quite a bit, seeing as how most of the Nordic monsters are normally weak and can give my Thor the power boost to even surpass like the other god cards, Obelisk, Ra, or Slifer.
Possibly.
And another effect is, if they decide they want to try to weaken the monster to destroy it, like with a Mystic Space Typhoon or something, if it's destroyed by that kind of means, then I can add a Nordic Relic from my deck to my hand, which can be any one of these, which can be very good. Next, we have the field spell for the deck, the Nordic Lights. This gives me a protection from my monsters, as the Nordic monster cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. But there is a downside to this card. If this card is destroyed, all face-up Nordic monsters I control go with it. So it is good and bad in the sense that if I play it, I can stall out, maybe protect some of my monsters.
The difference is, at least when Fire Kings kill themselves, they take out the neighboring country.
It could potentially nuke myself,
you just nuke yourself.
putting me in a very bad position. Next, we have the Searcher for the deck, Glefnir, the Fetters of Fenrir. Now, what this card basically does is, it lets me search out a Nordic monster from my deck and add it to my hand. A very strong card. It's basically the only Searcher for the deck that's specific for Nordics. Next, we have one of the best things about this deck, the relics. Now, Gungir is one of my favorite ones to use, as a sense of, I banish a Nordic or an Asian monster from the field as cost to destroy one card on the field, and during my second end phase, I can bring back the monster, basically negating the cost I originally used to activate this card. Next, it's just a bottomless trap hole, good card, make sure I have some kind of advantage, or make sure I slow down my opponent. Next, I have Nordic Relic Breskanim, man.
Hard to say.
I'm gonna try to learn these names, I promise, folks. Basically, I target one card on the field, and target one card my opponent controls, making sure that the opponent's monster is destroyed. I make the attack points match each other. Now, if I couple this with the Nordic Lights, I can assure that the monster is the only one destroyed in this. It's a very good combo. Don't get to use that much, but when it does hurt the opponent quite a bit. Trust me on that. Next, we have one of my other favorite Nordic relics, Nordic Relic Majinord. Now, what this does is, I target one Nordic or Asian monster I control. Its attack and defense points become double until the end phase. It cannot attack the opponent directly, which is kind of meh, but it does make sure that I can kill any monster on the field, especially if it's Thor.
I think we can let this slide.
Potentially, I can make very big plays with this.
Then again, limited
and I love this card.
Also has the fact of
next, we have Nordic Relic Leviathan, one of the other really good Nordic relics.
Much of the pain
basically, if my opponent's monster has destroyed one of mine this turn, I can activate this, destroy it, and the best part is, other card effects cannot be activated in response to this card's effect, meaning my opponent cannot do anything about it, not even negate it. Next, we have Thor's signature weapon, Mjolnir.
A divine relic.
Basically, what this does is, I target one Asian monster I control, it can make a second attack this turn. Potentially, if my opponent has no monsters on the field, I can potentially deal 7,000 damage.
Oh god, imagine tying that with the limiter removal card.
And if I can couple that with...
I mean, yeah, you can't attack directly.
I cannot attack directly. Never mind, folks.
Well, no, you could still use it, but
this
still.
could also be a field clear.
It's just you can't attack directly,
I can make Thor attack 2 monsters on the field. So, it has many
uses.
uses.
Blue Eyes, I activate
Sadly,
limiter
I have
removal,
not get
then
to
I
use it
activate
much on camera, but off camera, it has been very
Say goodbye to all of your life
next
points,
we have
assuming you don't have any base
that is specific for the Asian monsters. While I control this card,
Solemn Authority.
Other cards cannot. I'm sorry. While I control this card, Asian monsters cannot activate their effects.
But they're immune to everything.
They cannot be targeted by other cards. So cards that target us specifically, like let's say Raigeki Break, any kind of spell or trap card that I target, or even monster effects,
where does it say negate the effect?
cannot target Asian monsters. Unfortunately, that does work for myself, so I cannot use like Mjolnir or Mazignord or Breskanimin, but it does give my monster some solid protection. Next, we have a Solemn Strike. You already know what this card does. Negate is summoned by paying 1500, and Solemn Warning, which does the basic as well with just paying 2000. Next, we're gonna get into the extra deck. The heart of this deck, Thor, Lord of the Aegir. Now, the Thor.
And everyone in the comments is probably going, "Where's your entry of everything?"
They can only be special summoned by using their unique tuners, such as the Nordic Beast, which is Goldfax. Now, Goldfax is mainly the card you're supposed to use for Thor, but
there are other options.
Like I said before, Vanitas can count for all 3 of the Nordic summoning conditions, so that's why I have both in the deck to give me more options to go into Thor. Also, when he is destroyed, I can banish a Nordic Beast from my graveyard to bring him back and deal 800 points of damage. Now,
Ukazi may not seem like much, but if Gaga Cowboy can bring games, why not Thor?
In the graveyard. So Thor cannot utilize that, so it is very much preferred that I use Goldfax for these conditions. Now, the other thing that's really good about Thor is, when he's on the field, I can activate his effect and negate all the monster effects on my opponent's side of the field. So I can potentially shut down some very dangerous effects, so that I can make sure I destroy the monster. Thor is the heart of this deck, and he is going to be staying in this deck for a very long time. He is never going to leave it, basically.
Good.
Next, we have Dark Strike Fighter, a level 7 monster. As you can tell, there's a lot of levels 4s and 3s, so it's very easy for me to bring out Dark Strike Fighter a lot of times. Now, the reason I like this guy is
those 2 Nordic, like level 10 monsters.
He can use any other monster on the field as cannon fodder and deal my opponent life points equal to the level of the monster times 200. So, I could potentially use this guy to finish off my opponent who's like on the little speck of life points, or maybe use Thor and deal him 2,000 worth of damage, as you saw in one of the roleplay duels, actually, now that I remember. He's very good, he's a very strong monster, and he's probably going to be in this deck for a long time.
No.
Voltic Bicorn. Now, you might be wondering, why not be using the other ones? Well,
Lightning Tricorn.
I kind of find this one guy a little bit better for my deck in the sense that if he's destroyed by card effect or by battle, I can send the top.
I used to run me and
my opponent both send the 7 cards of our decks to the grave. I can utilize my graveyard pretty well with this deck. But my opponent, I do not know if they can, so it can be hit or miss if I'm helping my opponents or if I'm hurting them. So I don't bring him out that often, but when I do, he's a pretty solid card to be using. Vulcan the Divine. He just fits the whole God complex.
It's in the God complex.
When he's summoned, I can target one face-up card on the field, normally it's himself, sadly enough, and send him and a targeted monster or card on my opponent's side of the field back to their deck. Now, this guy is very strong in the sense that I can basically reset a strong card my opponent controls for the cost of maybe a weak monster on mine or himself. Next, we have my number monster, number 39, Utopia. Utopia is my number monster. He's a very good utility card with the level 4s in my deck. He's good at stopping attacks. I may be adding his evolutions, I may not. Utopia is just really good on his own. Maybe I'll add in Ray as a sense of, with this deck I tend to be living on like a little bit of life points, so I may be able to utilize Ray more.
I would bring out Ray more the back then, so Utopia
Next we have Concealer Omega. A lot of the cards in this deck is counted as light attributes, as you can see.
Then run Blady, so Omega
fits with this deck.
Or M7.
Basically, when he is on the field, I can detach one overlay unit from this guy. He is unaffected by spells and trap cards, so I could potentially make it so that he cannot be stopped during an attack that can potentially finish or get rid of a dangerous monster my opponent controls. Now, this is the first version of the deck, the clean version that I originally started with. As you guys saw in the roleplay, it wasn't always consistent, because as it sadly is, the Nordic cards are not that strong on their own specifically. But I found different ways. I found other people's builds on his decks. I've looked at many other builds. I've tested cards, and basically this deck wasn't the strongest, but I've made it better in upgraded versions. Now if you guys want me to make the other versions of the deck's profiles, tell me in comments below that you want to see them, and I'll make the videos. I'll maybe combine the two because the next version of the deck isn't that much different, but it does add some of the support I made specifically for this deck to make it speeded up. Now, I do hope that you guys did enjoy this, and I really do hope that you guys will continue watching my videos, continue watching the roleplays, and I do hope that you guys will join me for the next one. See ya, folks.